Yo guys, this is Reinhardt and I have the entire zoo in front of me. I have a cat and I have a dog, both looking for some love. But no, this actual video is not about the zoophilia like you guys would actually thought. This video is going to be about the class balance, like a lot of people ask me, and what I think about decays in 5.2 and what I think about 5.2 in general. So let's get started. This is going to be a long ass vlog, but I guarantee you this is probably going to be worth your time to some extent, because this is going to be theory crafting and my wish list. So what I'm expecting in 5.2? Well, first of all, I'm expecting to rogues and monks completely annihilate everything, and that includes monk healers at the same time. Now, the thing that actually scares the living crap out of me is a ring of peace, because this thing is not very peaceful. Like I said multiple times, this should be like a ring of horror, because first of all, it's AoE mobile, AoE silence, and what I mean by mobile, it actually follows people around, and it's a AoE silence, and on top of that, it also disarms. So monks are gonna be the ultimate anti-cleave class, because they're gonna have two different disarms. Would say that I'm actually very scared of it, to be honest. It's not from a cleave standpoint, but from a general standpoint at the same time, because let me give you something in perspective. A decay grips a healer into a ring of peace. God, that is so nasty, it's unbelievable. And during that time, monk can actually stop one of the DPS to prevent pills. It's gonna be enormous. It's gonna be a game breaker for sure. And the fact that monks are very durable against, let's say, like RMP and stuff, because simply put is when the priest is trying to get in for the fear, or a mage stacks on top of the rogue try to do damage in a smoke bomb, ring of peace is gonna take care of that multiple times. They're gonna prevent a lot of CCs from a disc priest, and it's gonna prevent a lot of damage from the mage. So in that retrospect, actually I think that monks are gonna be super strong, and rogues at the same time as well. Now, needed to say, rogues did need a defensive buff because they would just fall over and die against a physical DPS, but I think that what they're actually doing to rogues is a complete overkill, to be honest, because simply put is you cannot absolutely give them so much more defenses when their offensive is way too high. Now, about the mages, again, they're gonna be somewhere in the middle, like everybody other casters. I think they're gonna be actually fine. In all honesty, I think they need to do something tweaking them. I like that they're buffing Frostbolt and gonna reward people for casting the actual Frostbolt, but I do think they need to tone down their instant cast damage a little bit, and I'm gonna address that very soon. Now, the cat is trying to jump on my lap again. Are you serious, cat? Like, what the hell? Last night, this cat actually sat on my freaking keyboard and turned off a number pad lock. In the middle of arena, I couldn't use my razor nugger. It was actually completely stupid. I was streaming that too. So, now let's start it with the class changes. And I'm gonna address Decay, Locks, and Shadow Priest at the very end. So, we have Decay Druid. Let's talk about the Druids really quickly. Feral Cyclone change was needed. No matter what anybody says, making Feral dead in PvP, absolutely not. They're still gonna have a shit tons of stuns, silences, amazing, probably one of the best mobilities in the game. And to top it off, they're gonna have a 30-second Cyclones. I think it's completely warranted. I think that before that, what they had is a Predator Swiftness Cyclone into a Nature Swiftness Cyclone, and they could actually clone like 2 targets at the same time. Very easy, with absolutely no thought required. That needed to be changed, and it's finally changing. Now, for those who think actually like ferals are gonna be dead in PvP, let me give you in perspective. No other melee in the game right now have a spawnable CC, especially spawnable CC that becomes an instant cast at the same time. So that change was actually warranted and needed, absolutely. So kudos to Blizzard for actually realizing that. Now we have a Druid. What else we have? A Hunter. I think Hunters are fine. I think the only thing that Hunters need to be doing is kind of. I'm gonna talk a little bit in the actual. I'm gonna leave the Hunters right now, and because the lot of stuff that I want to talk in a couple minutes are gonna be all coming down there. It's gonna be Hunter and Warrior at the same time. Now I need to stop doing this thing. We are actually, it's very cold in Arizona. It got up to like 0 Celsius. 32, 30, 29 Fahrenheit. It was actually a little bit below. So it's pretty funny, because Arizona is the place where there's a lot of carrot palm trees out there. And gosh, my thinking process is completely fucked up. So anyway, let's keep going here. We have Mage. I think Mage is perfectly fine. Monks already touched base with that. Let's see, who do we have before I can actually get into specifics. In terms of like the whole mechanics and meta gameplay. Let's talk about the healers. I think Rest of Shamans legitimately need something anti-cleave, because they do get cleave down to the ground. I think actually a very good thing would be to do is to give every single shaman Astral Shift baseline and make it usable while you're stunned or silenced. So I think that would be actually a very good way of fixing the Rest of Shamans, and try to come up with the other talent in the first tier, survivability tier 3. Because I do think that the shamans kind of need some sort of cooldown where it's like, hey, don't clip the crap out of me, bro, because shamans do flop against the cliffs very fast. Let's see, Disc Priest, I think they're gonna be in a good spot. We need to check it a little bit. Their mana management is a little bit poor in PvP, but it's way too good in PvE at the same time. So I'm very interested what this build is gonna do it. I like the inner focus change, and I like that they're giving inner will to actually Holy Priest at the same time as well. So maybe what they should do for the Disc Priest, also increase their damage just a little bit, their offensive pressure. And I think what they need to do with the Disc Priest as well is maybe lower cooldown on the pain sap. Would be really nice. I don't know what else I can say about the Disc Priest. Disc Priests are known for being amazing dispellers, and because the dispel change, I have no idea what to say. And they also remove the mana burn from the game, so maybe possibly give them some sort of a little crowd control as well, a very little, not overdo it at the very least. Let's say Disc Priest, Rest of Shaman, Monk Healer, I already touched base this. Rest of Druids. Rest of Druids actually need a healing buff. They're low in PvE and in PvP, unless you're doing RBGs where you spam hotting everything. They are actually not the most viable healer in PvP, and they are forced, I'm repeating this, forced to play with the classes that have shit tons of pills, shit tons of off heals, or in general just can actually have a good reset balance. For example, Shadow Priest, God Comp with the Rest of Druid, Mage, Shadow Priest. For one particular reason, because the comp actually has a lot of defensive cooldowns on their partners. Because the problem with the Rest of Druid is they can survive quite nicely, but they cannot keep somebody else with all the cleave damage. It's way too much damage for their healing. So I think that they're actually healing their HOTS needs to be increased by like 20 to 30% in my opinion, or at least some sort of like a rejuvenation heal, maybe lower cooldown, not lower cast time on rejuvenation. Do something about it, because I do believe they are actually in a dire need of some sort of a buff. Let's see, Rest of Druids covered, Monk covered, Shaman covered, Holy Paladins. I do think that the Holy Paladins need to reduce their instant cast healing by like 20-30% and increase their castable healing at the same time, because right now blankets are going away, melee interrupts on 15-second cooldown. So the last thing that needed is we need more casts, and I'm gonna touch base it a little bit. Now let's talk about my so to say wish list for 5.2. and if you guys notice, I'm not jump cutting all this shit at all. And for one particular reason is because I do not suffer from having a small penis and not being able to talk clearly for like 5, 10, 15 minutes straight. I think it's actually very easy, so to say. So anyway, let's keep going here on the stuff that I actually want to see, wish list, so to say. My first wish list would be to actually nerf melee damage, melee physical damage by like 20%, 20 to 30% in PvP, because I believe that the physical damage is way too high right now. It's incredibly high, or maybe not lower the physical damage, but remove the cooldown stacking for like warriors, ferals, and hunters. I really hate this thing that they're rewarded for popping as many offensive cooldowns in one specific moment at the same time. A good example is KFC just popped all their cooldowns on my Affliction Lag that is sitting at 67% HP. I popped my Bubble, I popped my Aura Mastery, I survived just for just a little bit, and after Aura Mastery was gone, I popped all my healing. And I went down from 200k HP to 0 with all my healing popped at the same time in about 1.5 to 2 seconds. So I think that the cooldown stacking needs to go down in the game. And the reason why I'm saying the cooldown stacking needs to actually brought back down is because it's not that you have a problem surviving the cooldown stacking classes like warriors, ferals, or hunters. It's not that. It's the problem that when they do all of that on you and they have two classes combined, healer has to pop almost all of his defensives to keep you up, and you have to pop nearly almost all of your defensives to keep yourself up. Now what happens from there is very simple, that for the next 2 to 3 minutes you're not gonna have any defensive cooldowns, neither the healer will be. So another good follow-up CC chain on the healer, and you're gonna go down like a freaking cracker, because their offensive cooldowns are just way too good. So, and of course you can counter it, but let's say for example a few classes cannot counter it very well. Example, Affliction Lock decays, for example. So Affliction Lock decay cannot absolutely almost counter at all the big huge burst when it happens on your healer or on your lock, because there's a lot of fear escapes, there's a lot of dispels. So in that retrospect, I do believe that the cooldown stacking needs to go down, maybe bring up a little bit more sustained DPS. Although I think that Warrior sustained DPS is going to be absolutely amazing with a Taste of Blood change in 5.2. It's actually going up by a good, really good amount. Now another thing I want to talk about is rogues. Rogue opener damage and damage in the Shadow Dance has to go down, and the Nerf Strike have to be removed from a chip shot, in my opinion. The reason is they're buffing their offensive capability and doubling their defensives, but offensive capabilities of the rogue are absolutely atrociously good right now. It actually can global anybody at any time. So what I think is actually needed is actually lower rogues offensive capability a little bit if they're over buffing their defenses for way too much. Maybe not over. And the thing is, they also need to remove Cloaker Shadows from rogues. For one particular reason is because rogues are a little bit vulnerable against, let's say, melee cleaves, but against the caster cleaves and the casters, they have actually pretty good legitimate survivability. So in that sense, I don't think that the Cloaker Shadows in preparation is actually needed for them. I do think that the 50% healing debuff on the rogue is going to be an overkill completely. I do not agree with that change at all, and I do not agree with the free eviscerate that they get at the lower at the end tier level 90. For one particular reason is because eviscerate crits hard. It can crit up to like 100. I've seen 130k eviscerate crits, and that is a lot. That is disgusting. So a free eviscerate crit after a Shadow Dance with a 50% of mass effect on you is a little bit too much, if you would actually ask me. Now, consequently, the funny thing is, in Wrath of the Lich King, where I started playing, and probably this were like some of my good days out there, I really like Mr. Pandaria decays, and I'm gonna talk about it later on in this vlog. But hear me out here. In Mr. Pandaria, Warrior was known for doing a shit tons of damage, tunneling the target like really hard with a 50% of mass effect, plus another 50% of mass effect with unrelating assault. They had literally like 75% of mass effect, and they were balanced around. If they overpowered during the cast time, the healer would have another 50% debuff on them, or whatever the DPS is. So the Warrior would be known for training really hard and doing a lot of damage, providing a lot of healing debuffs, so the enemy team will just pretty much croak under pressure. Now the rogue has been known is not providing as many assault damage pressure, but the rogues have been known for actual lot of really good quality, high quality control in Wrath of the Lich King. Now fast forward to expansions, the kinda two different roles kind of submerged way together between the rogue and the warrior, and right now what we have is warrior have a shit tons of stuns, and the rogue has a really good sustained damage and a really good high pressure burst. So they both kind of came down together. But the funny thing about those two is if they both going at each other at the same time, then the class that has a lot of offensive capability and a lot of crowd control will actually win. So for example, Warriors winning this expansion against the rogues this season because they had a shit tons of stuns, they have a really good survivability and a really good damage. Now what happens right now is Warriors kind of have some of this taken away from them, some of their control, and the thing is, rogues are getting buffed defensively. So now the rogue is going to be the ultimate melee with a lot of stuns and a lot of burst damage, and it's kind of shifted out. So whenever one class have just a little bit advantage over the other one, you'll see the representation go skyrocket. So what I'm expecting is Warriors representation go down by from 17% to probably like 8-9% tops, maybe like even good like 6-7%, and then Rogues representation skyrocketing up high, just simply because the comps are now gonna prefer to have a running with a Rogue instead of the Warrior. So that's about the Rogues. The thing is I want to also talk about is my decay class. Holy Decay is not bad right now. You can make it work. I got up to 2380, 2350, 2320, 2360, running a multiple different comps. Was in the Glad range a couple times, and I honestly say here with the confidence that we can make unholy work. The problem right now with unholy decays or decays in general is a huge lack of pills and CC. So with the conversion up, we're gonna have a really good survivability. But the very unfortunate part about this is that even though we're gonna have a decent survivability, we're not gonna have amazing pills. We're not gonna have pills at all. So even though we can survive maybe with conversion up, the problem is the hard switches to our DPS won't survive it because we don't have a pills. So I'm gonna make a wish list for a decays, what I think that needs to be done to make us semi-competitive at the same time. Phew. Okay, that's the decay portion. Now let me touch the luck really quick. Actually, I'm gonna touch the luck a little bit later on. So that was the decay thing that I just kind of spurted out. Now the thing I want to talk to you guys right now is what I think in general is I think physical damage needs to be brought down a little bit, like 20-25% at the very least in the expansion in PvP only. Maybe have not PvP power benefiting that them too much, but just reduce their physical damage down, like some sort of a battle fatigue now applies to that shit. But once they are actually nerfing melee physical damage by 20-25%, what they also need to do is they need to nerf instant cast damage at the same time. And yes, I'm talking about Demolac instant cast damage. Make maybe Demolac cast something in PvP, but on the other hand, once they're casting it, they're gonna get rewarded hugely. Nerf Iceland spam with another Tempest. That's the most retarded thing ever possible. Actually, I was fighting against a Gladiator Mage, and the funny thing is 94.5% of his damage was instant cast. He cast like 4 frostbolts in the entire match, like 3-minute match. Only 4 frostbolt, everything else was instant cast damage, and he actually topped the damage, which was very funny to watch. Like seriously, I do not believe in like why Nether Tempest gives offensive procs. I don't think it's a good idea. Buff the ability to do the really good damage, Nether Tempest to actually be really good damage, but remove the instant cast procs. I think that all the casters have to cast. So what I want to do is I want to nerf the instant cast damage by like 20-30%, and I'm talking about also a Shadow Priest instant cast damage, a Boomkin Star Surge, because that shit actually does a shit tons of damage. Just in general, all instant cast has to be brought down, but in order that they should increase the castable damage by like 20%. Now with the Destrolax, I don't think they actually need to buff their castable damage. What they need to do in reverse is actually reduce the cast bolt casting time. So I think that would be the very good thing to do, because right now everything is balanced around how many interrupts and how many jukes, how many line of sights you can do. This is the best meta game at its finest. This is why everybody liked Rise of the Lich King, because everything had to be castable and all the CC had to be castable at the same time. So this is where actually the game was really fun, at least for me I would say, because you can prevent a lot of shit on yourself if you're playing smart. So I think Blizzard needs to go back to that kind of roots where it's like instant cast damage is nice, but it's just a filler, it's not the main killer, so to say. So I'm talking about just in general, like for fire mages, reduce a Pyroblast cast time and reduce a Pyroblast proc damage, but the castable time actually increase that damage. I think that's the best way to go. For people have to be cast to the actual damage, because they're gonna have to be juking people, and in overall the meta game will become so much more interesting. Now let's talk about Affliction Locks. What I really would like to see for Affliction Locks to happen is nerf their pet damage. Just get ready for it. Nerf the pet damage, remove any damage from the count whatsoever, any damage. Remove Malefic Grasp damage at all, like the itself Malefic Grasp. Remove the Malefic Grasp dot proccing to like from 50% to 40%. Remove, you hear me out? Actually remove Soul Burn, Soul Swap, applying all dots at the same time. Remove that shit. But in return, buff Affliction Locks dot damage to the point where it's people gonna get suffocating. Now I know the gear is gonna be scaling very well for Affliction Locks, and we're gonna see a lot of Affliction Locks in the future, but I think that would be the best way to go. Remove the instant cast damage applications, remove the unnecessary outside the dot damage for PvE, but buff the dot damage to such amount that it's actually gonna produce a shit tons of pressure. So good luck when the one that he has to force to cast, that can actually get the cast off, will literally suffocate the entire enemy team. With that said though, the only thing I would like to actually see about the Affliction Locks is like overall like increase the dot damage by a whole lot, and this is why I want to nerf the outside sources for PvE purposes too. The another thing when I want to talk about the affliction lags is that give them some sort of survivability. You know what probably won't be one of good ways is actually bake Drain Life and Malefic Grasp all together at the same time. If you bake and put those together, what we're gonna have is we're gonna have a decent sustained healing while casting Malefic Grasp that will be healing us, and probably introduce something like Soulburn Health, bring a Soulburn Hellstone HP buffer back. Maybe reduce the Hellstone cooldown for the lags a little bit, because the problem with Affliction lags is they're getting cleaved very hard, and to the point where Affliction lag actually forced to go demo against, let's say, a Kitty KFC or a Kitty Cleave, because once those two classes pop all the cooldowns on a lag, they strip them off of any defensive at all whatsoever, and after that they're gonna get a good CC chain on their healer, and that's it. You're croaking, you're done. You're gonna die as Affliction lag. And it's not a problem actually applying that damage pressure as a lag. It's funny, it's not the problem with that. The problem actually Affliction, like I would get trained, I would die, and I would still top damage as a lag, Affliction lag. The problem is that it's not the pressure application, we don't get shut down over pressure wise. The problem is we just don't have enough CDs to actually live through the big huge burst sustained damage, so to say. For Shadow Priest, what ideally I would like to see is actually, I think Shadow Priests are absolutely amazing, to the point where I think they might be a little bit over the top. What I would love to see for a Shadow Priest is just one little though change, is make their horror effect disarm, buff the cooldown from 40 seconds to 1 minute, and completely remove cost associated with it whatsoever, because it's sort of like, the way I see it is sort of like a quality of life change. You need your Devouring Plague to do damage, so they need to remove the orb cost from disarm there, I think, and then I think they will be actually pretty damn perfect, to be honest. The class I'm gonna be probably could try out would be Bumpkin or a Rested Druid. I'm not sure which one I actually do. If I play Rested Druid, I'm probably gonna be playing like a Mongo in the beginning, because I'm completely unfamiliar with the healing class too. So I think, what am I missing at? Oh yeah, let's talk about decays really quickly here. What I think in the metadata a little bit. I think decays need a little bit more pills, and I'm gonna make a suggestion vlog about it on Thursday for you guys to actually see. So this is so far my thoughts about 5.2, what I would actually really like to see so far in the meta game of PP. I'm gonna touch a little bit RBGs right now. In the RBGs, I think Death Relax are a little bit too much. AoE damage, it's very easy. I referring to Death Relax as a Frost Decay caster, because it's very easy to top damage, but takes absolutely no effort. Like, I never played Death until the last week, and the first time I tried to top damage over a 2400 lag, Death Lag, I tap damage just in general. I'm looking at this, I'm like, dude, this is just a joke. And no, I didn't spam only AoE, I actually tap killing blows. I consistently get up to like 10 plus killing blows if we're winning, and 3 to 4 to 6 killing blows if we're losing as a demon lag. That's like, I don't spam only AoE, and it's still too much damage. So they're incredibly strong there, but in PvP settings and arena, they're actually not that strong. So I think maybe nerfing Chaos Bolt damage just a little bit, and its cast time would be actually completely 100% warranted. And I think that's about it so far for the changes. So I talked about reducing physical damage done from the physical damage dealers. I talked about reducing the instant cast damage from the casters. The another thing I want to talk about is reducing the instant cast healing from the healers. So when you all put those together and you see a melee, that melee is not globaling anybody, a caster that has to cast to do damage, and you see a healer that has to cast to do healing, if you all put that meta game all together, what you're gonna have is a much more enjoyable arena season. The biggest thing though, what I would love to see for actually World of Warcraft is the comms balance around a melee, a caster, and a healer. I think that should be the best setup. That what should be Blizzard balancing around, because let me put this in perspective. A melee has to worry about his positioning, a melee has to interrupt, he has to go out there and do damage. A caster has to be worrying about the CCs, setting up the kills for a melee. and the healer has to be watching his positioning. Now if we take a melee cliff, the melee has to be tunnel visioning one target till it completely dies. And by the way, hunters in that retrospect, the BM hunters, are considered to be melee. I think, in all honesty, they should tone down a little bit BM hunters. I'm actually gonna talk right about this one. And the melee tunnel vision target down to it when it croaks. And the caster cliffs, the problem with them is that they kill people with the instant cast and they have way too much CCs. Therefore, caster cliffs makes people not fun. Like when you're facing a caster cliff, you're not having fun to play because you're sitting in so much CC. And when you're fighting a melee cliff, you're not having fun either because you are getting trained down the ground, or your ally is getting trained down the ground, and there's not much you can do about it because there's so much damage going on. But if you combine a melee and a caster at the same time, put them together, we're gonna have a combination of both. Not a lot of CC and not a lot of cliff damage, and this is where the arena match would get very, very interesting. About the BM hunters, the only thing I want to say is that once the BM hunters got their hands on the, I don't think marksman hunters are bad at all. I think they're doing a really good damage, they have a really good amount of CC, and this is where they're supposed to be. They're supposed to be a control class with some elements of burst. They should not be a burst class with a shit ton of CC. Now with the BM, the problem with the BM in the previous expansion, they never had readiness. So they had Bestial Wrath, they had all these amazing cooldowns, but the thing is, what they made BM hunters a subpar class is because they did not have a readiness. Now the problem is, as soon as they got to the readiness, got their hands on the readiness, they became over the top for that particular reason, because BM hunters right now are just way too good to be true. So I think what the actual Blizzard needs to do, that's my perspective, they should lower the cooldowns and remove readiness, cold snap, preparation from the game. Let me give you a perspective. Mage without cold snap is gonna die very fast because the ice block is 3-minute cooldown. So what they should do is they should make a ice block not 3-minute cooldown, possibly 1-minute cooldown, where you're gonna have a decent window where you can kill a mage and he still not have that cold snap. For rogues, reduce the cooldowns on all their defensives, on everything that the readiness does. Maybe reduce the cooldowns for those by like 33%, and then we're gonna have a really good rogue with a good sustained survivability. Same thing goes for hunters. Do not reduce cooldowns on their offensive capabilities, like Chimera Shot, like Bestial Wrath. Maybe make it a little bit less of a cooldown. And the thing is, do not lower cooldown on their crowd control, because I believe it even right now, it's a bit too much over the top, and it's all instant too. So this is what I would actually do ideally: remove all abilities that reset your cooldowns. Cooldowns are there for a reason, and they're involved in having really good smart gameplay. So resetting those having another cooldown that resets those cooldowns, I think is a total bogus. So those are my partake on the balanced season. Now take it or leave it. Believe me, this is what I think. This is my personal, my friends, it's my personal opinion. So when you're actually gonna be going out there and you're gonna be trying to judge me or some shit, keep in mind that's my opinion. That's, I think, what I would make a game a whole lot more fun and enjoyable for me. Now a lot of people would probably not agree with me, a lot of people would agree with me, but it's all up to you. I just gave you my opinion. Take it or leave it, guys. Thanks everybody for watching this long ass vlog, and I hope you guys have a good day. До свидания.